All right, hi everybody. So I'm just going to be working on this. I hope you can hear me. This is just some sketches I do every day's daily practice. And you'll be able to see me doing some daily practice. This is some practice of a storyboard. And these are some skull studies too.
And we just started it, and we have like midnight help.
Yeah, and you help. And this is my baby in the back. All right, so what I'm going to do is every day I'm just going to be doing my design studies and working on some things. So I hope you join me. This is all of this work is for the comic that I'm working on,
I
and
have the toy and you decide.
so this is part of my practice.
Ah,
Here you go. So let's try and do some practice right now too. One of the things that we could practice on, well, these are just some watercolor practicing um, from some magazines, just to practice females and practice like their expressions and stuff like that. This is just some gun designs for a few things that I'm working on. And this here, let's start on something new. So let's say we're trying to, I'm just going to be sketching and talking about whatever I'm sketching might not be directly related to what we're working on. I do want to think about, like, when I do start um, designing my scenes, what is going to be the visual flow of the scene. So this here is like a big flowing gesture line. And I want to imagine first what is what everything's going to look like. So at this stage, I'm just quiet and I'm thinking about the scene beforehand. And I'm making tweaks in my mind about how it would look cooler. So this is the part where I'm not really moving a lot, or so if I look at this guy and I see where's the ground plane, I'm gonna make the ground plane here where this cross is. So if I make his center of gravity around here, actually center of gravity would be here, then I can make him be moving all over this ground plane. And this is going to look far more realistic and fun. And then the next thing, of course, I have to worry about is my proportions. Or like, where's his pelvis here? Where's his rib cage? Why is he making this move come this way? What happens to his clothes as he makes this interesting move to the other side? As you can see, this is his gun holster. Connected with a buckle. So this is probably too much detail at this time. Like just a lot of details. And I should more be concerned about the proportions and the major movement, the major flow of the body, of the character. And everything is about my story. That's what I'm most worried about. And that's the thing I want to communicate the most to the reader. So, how do my visuals here communicate this story of my main character here, whose name is Ray? So, this is all about for my webtoon, as you know, I already mentioned, but that's coming out, and I'm gonna mention it a bunch of times because I really want you guys to be excited about it. So, it's gonna be a web comic, and it's a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, you'll learn some cool things from it as well. See how the folds, the clothes are folding around this guy? But even with the folds, like since I'm the artist, I could change everything to tell the story that I want to tell. So, how does a fold tell the story? That's a good question. And you should be asking yourself that question as you're working on your own art. How does a fold tell a story? Think about Spawn, Todd McFarlane, back in the days when he made and still does make awesome graphic art, or when he did Batman or and Spider-Man, how he made the web of Spider-Man tell a story, how he made his Spawn's awesome chains and his cape tell a story. He was really like doing some amazing stuff way back then that we could all benefit from now. But that's like that's the idea that you want to think about. So right now he's like really tense. I want him to be reaching for his gun. First, my arm was going to be coming out this way, but I want him to be reaching for that gun right here. So as you look, maybe his arm could start coming down, or his arms in the back, about to reach down and grab his gun like this. Now remember, you want to think about proportions. So you have to know your basic anatomy, arm, how much is a cranial unit, and more about this is on Proco's YouTube channel. But that's Beverly Hale system, cranial units. That's what I'm using to keep everything in check. Plus, I'm using Scott Robertson's all the stuff I learned from Scott Robertson's books on perspective about uh, so that I can keep this in proportion as it goes off into perspective, forward and back in perspective and stuff. All right, when I get my basic guy down like this, right? So now I have my guy here. And so what I want to do is I have a very cool flow and movement, right? So um, at this point, let me just, and I like his arm is going to be coming down here looking for his gun. So I'm going to see, I'm going to exaggerate this stuff now. Well, that wasn't very, if the fingers have to be showing, now everything has to show that same energy, right? If my hand ends up looking like a Dr. Seuss hand, that's going to take away from all the energy, right? Of the rest of the scene and the rest of his pose. So I want these to show some dynamism too. How about something like this? It's a little better. Now this hand is much better than a Dr. Seuss hand. Okay, so think about every line. This is something Rob Rupel said in his book. You have to make every brush stroke. In his case, he was talking about brush strokes, but as is the same for line work, it has to be exactly the way you want it. And then you ask yourself, how do you want your brush stroke to be? So how do I want this right here, this curve right here? I want it to be like an X. Why do I want it to be like an X? Well, because I want it to follow the form. And I want it to be very dynamic. And diagonal shapes are really, really dynamic. Now I'm thinking more about these folds like being stretched out to the towards the back as he's like swinging his arm across because it's being bent the other way. So maybe those X's were actually not the best idea. That's where I should have imagined further what I wanted my lines to look like, because these lines are actually flattening. Like those lines that I put, they're actually flattening out my form. So what I'll do to fix it is just come across like that. More, see, a little bit more curved and following a cylindrical shape. All right, so this is not the bottom of his. You know how they used to have gun belts, that a second belt that would come lower? That's what this is. So it's not the bottom of his um, pants right here. This is more like the gun belt area that comes down for his other belt. Okay, so I have this guy down, right? This is my guy Ray. Let me throw some. Make his make this point this way too. Make his collar point in the direction that this is pointing, and the direction that he's looking at, because he's looking towards some bad dudes. Some dude like the villain, basically the enemy. And when you read the web comic, you'll be able to see who my enemy is that he's fighting. All right. So it's been 15 minutes and this got pretty far, which is a good thing. Now, let me just throw this in here like this. Make my shading follow the forms and give you some good reads. So he's reaching for this gun, but he already has another gun. So when you read my story, you'll find that they actually don't use lethal force. They use force that will make sure they're safe, but they're not going to use lethal force. That's part of their training. That's how all people with great power comes great responsibility, right? From our friend Stan Lee. So that's how it should be. You shouldn't really use lethal force unless you cannot literally help it, not because you're. But that's not what he's going to do, anyways. Here's our guy right here. Now look at his body shifting and turning. His torso is actually twisting underneath all of this, of what you can see here. So what I really like about this scene now that I drew is the dynamism and all the cool stuff, and it's really fun. And now it's only because I used the time in the beginning to imagine what I was doing for me to be able to get this far. Okay? And then I could even draw some other guys over here with their hiding behind some broken down like coach car or something like that. All right, so this is my person so far. I hope you see what's happening and that you like it. The next level that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this watercolor brush and my other watercolor stuff, add some water, and let's see what happens. This is my trusty watercolor kit. If you guys know what scene this is, write it in the comments below. It's a painting I did and turned into a sticker. Comment below. It's from a movie. It's from an awesome movie. That's the hint. Might be hard for you to tell. Okay, so now I got that. That was a painting I did of a movie still. Like just paused it and worked on the stuff. Movies are a great way, especially your favorite movies, most likely, are great ways to study composition and all that cool stuff. Filmography, cinematography, photography, how people did stuff, worked on things. Okay, so now I'm gonna go straight black on some parts. So this is 22 minutes. So I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to think before I make a mark, just like Rob Rupel mentions in his the book is Graphic LA. It's one of my favorite books. But you also want to get Framed Ink, which is another one of my favorite books. That's this one right here. Graphic LA is by Rob Rupel. That's this one right here. Both of these books are just amazing, and I have like a lot of other books on art too, like the Scott Robertson books I was mentioning, and Andrew Loomis books that are they're free online because they're digital. The Andrew Loomis books because their copyright is out, so you can get those books for free. But what I just showed you was Rob Rupel. This is Graphic LA. I'll show you again. Rob Rupel. This you can buy from designstudiopress.com or amazon.com. So definitely buy these books to support them if you want to learn some awesome stuff about art and making pictures. Those are the two books I was referring to a lot. So this is to show the, I just lost it. It was the diagonals, the creases on the boot. Now, how can I show this beautiful thing that happens when you look all around you when it's a construction of a face or in anything in most things in nature, you're going to have a dark light pattern. And that's very fun and interesting for the human eye to look at. So that's what I want to think about as I'm shading. How can I create a dark light pattern? Since this is all black and white, I have to adjust. I have to design all the tones to be able to be readable. If these tones are not readable to you, my audience, then as me doing a visual drawing of them, I've like kind of failed. Me doing a visual, being a visual storyteller, I'm going to fail if you guys are confused about what's happening, right? So I want to make everything as clear as possible, and that's what's happening right now. I also had water here. The purpose of the water is so I can add lighter tones where I see fit. So you see what's happening? Hopefully you can start to see those like dark patterns, and his trench coat I guess will be flying from beneath his other leg, I guess, because he turned so fast. I don't know how that works, but that's how it worked today. This is called a cue. You can look it up if you want to look it up online. It's Q. You'll get more information about my character that way. Mhm. Now, time is coming on 29 minutes. So I'm just going to finish this up because my goal is to have a time limit while I work. So I can definitely do things in a expedient way. And that's something uh, I really valued more by listening to Anthony Jones. It's the value of keeping a timer and a clock running is very important. So So that's the main stuff here. Take these lines back into my person here. Because he's like one of my main people I want you to look at. And you can tell he's having some trouble, or he's dealing with some trouble over here on the other end. So I could just use this to get my more detail areas worked on. All those smaller things, it's just harder to do with the brush. So this is 34 minutes now. A little bit longer than I'd hoped. It's really fun also. And now I told you guys that I have the lighter color, so I'll just take my brush, drop this in here, and now if I want any lighter tones, I can just bring it using this. Maybe I want the boots to be lighter, not totally black. Shirt. So the shading on his knuckles to be this color. Then if there's anything you guys want to do, keep working hard every day and just do it. So I'm not at the place I want to be 100% to be able to do a comic, because this is my first comic ever. But I won't get there until I start making comics, right? So I hope that you guys do the same when you're trying to accomplish what you want to. Try to improve, try to be the best version of yourself that you could be, and don't give up. And know that with time, you will succeed. With time and effort and thinking to improve, like ask yourself why always. Like, why didn't this go the way I wanted it to? Just like Rob Rupel mentioned, is this the brush stroke? Make that brush stroke exactly the way you want it, but ask yourself, what kind of brush stroke do I want? Why do I want this brush stroke? What is it going to communicate? So same thing when you're learning anything. Why do I want his, or how is this not dynamic? How can I make this more dynamic? What can I work on in the future? You need to ask these questions to yourself. And you need to put in that effort and constantly try to find your mistakes and improve. That's how you improve the fastest way. Those are called crits, right? Usually, but if you're learning on your own, then you have to critique yourself. So use these great uh, resources from artists that you love and admire, and um, maybe do some studies of their work, see how they use the brushstroke to answer the questions that and problems that you're trying to solve yourself. And things will get easier. Just stay on your path of trying to improve and keep working hard. And you will definitely be astounded at what the sacrifices you make for the goals that you want to obtain and the hard work you put in. You'll be surprised at how much you actually accomplish. So this is my saying is 38 minutes. My name here is Jamtron Art. You could also follow me on Instagram in here. I'm gonna be working on my like I said, the webcomic. This thing will be coming out in. My goal is in 3 months in March, around March 15th. Hope you guys are really excited, and I am. If you have any questions or anything, just comment, and I'll see you guys for another stream later.